So in each one of these installments for this series, I've been picking and choosing from different cases that I've been on and trying to make some sort of overarching theme, but yeah, I'm running out of themes, and especially themes that go across many patients. If I were to pick a theme that fit many patients, one of them would be the one that I had on my last shift, which was that nothing happened at all, and it was somebody who was told to me that they had suicidal ideation, and so then, therefore, I have to take it seriously. But other than that, a model patient, and it is the time of year for the healthcare system to be bogged down by patients who don't have anywhere else to stay, so they go to the hospital and say that they don't trust themselves to not hurt themselves, and they know all of the magic buzzwords, it seems. The magic words. It's a term that we use in behaviorism. Magic words are the things that when you hear it, you automatically have to give a certain type of response. If someone says that they're going to hurt themselves or have been thinking about it, ding, 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 they get an extended hospital stay. And if that was the point, if extending their stay was the point, then that's all they have to say. All sorts of other hypochondriac, imaginary symptoms can be said, and a doctor can dismiss them and say, no, you're fine, go forth from my building and be sick no more. But if they say that they want to hurt themselves or they've been thinking about it, they're spending the night. And if they can keep that story up, they'll spend more nights, So, there are some people who are already on public assistance that they know when their next paycheck from the government might be coming, so they know just about how many days at the end of the month they need to check themselves in for, and then when it comes close to them getting some check from some monthly disability whatnot, they will change their tune. And I don't know that the person I had on my last shift was all of those things that I just said, but definitely just boring. Not something that I would spend a lot of time talking about with you guys. And that is actually a theme for half of the patients I get. That they are boring, not very mentionable. It is true that I get like the most exciting patients ever, but then there's the other side of it where patients have to be monitored, every so often, sometimes multiple times in an hour, and they have to be charted, and you have to take vitals and write down what their behavior is, and they're sleeping. And with depressed people, it's even worse because they sleep half their fucking life away. So it doesn't matter what shift it is, day, night, grave, doesn't matter. They could be sleeping the whole way through it. And as a behaviorist, you just have to write it down. Sleeping, 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 and it kind of makes you want to go to sleep. So I've developed all sorts of strategies for not falling asleep while watching people sleep. One of which is to always have hot cocoa packets in my lunch bag so that I can add that to my coffee and make a mocha, because it's impossible to have a sleep dip when you have a mocha in your hands. It's impossible. It's something about like that natural reflex that people have when they're sleeping with the baby. They most likely will not roll over and crush the baby. It doesn't happen that often because we have this instinct to know that there's a baby there. And if you have a hot mocha in your hands, you're not going to fall asleep. Your brain is like, give me another sip. So, I think the same thing is true of peanut butter M&Ms. If you're on a long car trip and you're worried that you might have a sleep dip, hold a peanut butter M&M in your mouth, because your brain is going to say, fucking swallow, fucking swallow. And if you don't, you can't have a sleep dip until you do. It's just impossible. The flavor, there's something to it. Anyways, since I don't have any like really deep overarching theme, I'm going to tell you a couple cases that I've had recently, and then end it with one that is a thinker in and of itself. So recently, I had a patient who, on his M1 form from the police department, it said that he wanted to kill himself, but when the police officer asked him, do you have a plan for killing yourself? What are you going to do? The guy replied that he was going to pluck his eyes out of his head because he didn't want to look at the rest of the world. That's how he's going to kill himself. I don't know that that's a lethal wound, but that's what he replied to the officer, and that's what the officer wrote down. So, in this guy's charts, there was a mini psychological exam that he took. One of the things on the exam is, here's two trapezoids, now over here, draw exactly what's over here, copy it, and there's all these little brain tests that they give, like, say your ABCs backwards, and then you count how many they get right, and they're just little mini psychological exams, but they're not really useful to the evaluator so much as they're useful to people who are lesser in the psychological field than the evaluator. The evaluator is golden. So this is something that nurses might use when the evaluator is, a long appointment away and has too many things to do before they get to your patient. So I'm looking at this mini evaluation, and one of the pages, it's a blank page with a line, right? And it says underneath the line, close your eyes and write a sentence on this line, whatever comes to your mind. And this man who said that he wanted to pluck his eyes out so that he didn't have to look at the world, he wrote, and I quote, "Every day springs forth with the joy of life." And I looked up at him when I was at my chair with all my monitors, looking at all these patients. I looked up at him, and I knew he was fucking with me. He's just being weird to be weird at this point. I'm like, no. That patient was actually snowed to sleep by a Coke, a submarine sandwich, and 3 extra blankets. Easy shift. Another patient I had who had a very strange chart, that I'm going through as I'm, taking the patient on after I get a report. I like to read through their chart and see if there's anything that I wasn't told, because you get some dicks who don't tell you what you're up against, you know. Or just by them telling me, it doesn't sink in right away, you know. 18-year-old female. She's sitting in her room, and she's got two visitors. One, old with gray hair, woman, and one kind of looks like her boyfriend. Wearing a beanie cap. And putting his feet up on the hospital bed from the chair he's in. So he's really friendly with her in that way, A little too close. I'd say get a room, but they've got a room. And they need to get a room in a hotel, not in an ER, right? So I look down at this girl's chart because I'm like, well, she seems happy enough. She's chatting with these two, and they're all smiles, and they're laughing every couple of seconds, ha 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 ha. So I look at the chart, and it says, girl's name, reports that she sees a demon named Drake who tries to turn her against her grandmother. Girl's name also reports that she routinely sees demons walking through the walls. And my immediate reaction was to ask the nurse next to me, hey, who's that lady in there with her? And the nurse says, oh, that's her grandmother. I was like, well, that's not very safe for her to be in there, is it? But that's how I was handed the case. I'm looking at what looks like a death threat towards Grandma, but she's joking it up with Grandma. What the heck? Why is she here? I don't know. The last case I'll talk about in this installment, I've had my youngest suicidal patient record set at 8 years old. And that patient, he was probably more appropriately an ADD patient rather than a suicidal patient, because at 8 years old he decided it would be funny for him to go up to his teacher and tell his teacher that he's going to kill himself. Yay! Right? And this was right around Halloween, so I had extra Halloween candy from the house that I was passing out to certain patients to make them feel better. He didn't get any candy for me because he was already bouncing off the walls. His mom looked like she really needed a break. But he was 8 and not really suicidal in my opinion. My lay opinion. Okay? My real youngest patient that was seriously suicidal happened within the past 2 weeks, and she was 11. And the way that she came into the hospital was she was in the back seat of her mother's car, and she began to bash her head against the window and then try to open the door to the car so that she could jump out on a highway because she wanted to kill herself. That's how she was going to do it. Jump out of a moving vehicle. So when she gets to the hospital, unbeknownst to me, because I'm actually in the emergency department, not up in the triage. That's the first main area that people come in. It's called triage, and there's the waiting room and all that. When she was up there, some things happened that I didn't learn till later, but they had to get police to remove this patient from the back seat because she didn't want to go. And funny thing, hospital security guards and staff and anyone at the hospital are not allowed to eject someone from a car. You have to call the police to do that. So police have to make a special trip just to take this 11-year-old girl out of the back of the car and put her, not 100 feet away into the hospital, and then a couple more steps into the emergency department. That's when I get her, and immediately I'm wondering, why do I have this 11-year-old girl as my patient without a parent? It's normally not a thing that happens. Well, the parent was out in the lobby, and so the girl starts talking to her nurse, and she says a lot of bad things about her mom. She says that her mom's boyfriend is abusive, and that her mom was on substances, and basically was throwing her whole family under the bus. There's no problems with her. It's all her family. And coming from an 11-year-old girl who kind of looked like a little on the drama queen side, you take it with a pinch of salt. But in this case, shocker, she was telling the truth. When her mother was finally done talking with the policeman, she comes into the ED, and she starts walking towards my patient's room. And her gait to her walk immediately gave it away that her daughter was telling the truth, because she looked like Frankenstein trying to not step on a crack to not break his mother's back, okay? That's what she looked like. Big steps, really out of her gourd. And so it dawned on me that the reason why this girl was suicidal was because she's trying to get away from her mom, and here we are letting her mom in to see her, and no fight ensued, but there were tears, and then another family member came to stay with the girl while the mom went back out to the waiting room, and then eventually went home after giving consent to her daughter staying for whatever. And her daughter was slated to get an evaluation, but because it was going to take a long time, we told her, you should probably just get some rest, take a nap, go to sleep, and then when the evaluator gets here, you'll be fresh for that. And then, because it was the best thing at the time, after we got all the permissions that were needed, all the consent, the mother went home too. So, this 11-year-old girl left to fend for herself in a hospital, and it was probably the best place for her. But the whole time I was wondering, At what point does someone call CPS? At what point do we get Child Protective Services involved? Because here's a girl who's reported that she's been hit, reported that her parents are on drugs, that her home life is not safe, that she wants to kill herself to get away from her mom. At what point do we call CPS? Because it's actually not our job per se. It could be the nurse's job, the nurse's responsibility, but there are many of us who have titles in the hospital where we're not allowed to make that call, even because of HIPAA laws, privacy laws. And because if a person on drugs came to the emergency department and the emergency department just ratted out every drug user to the police and said, hey, we've got another drug user, you should probably go search their home while they're here, no one would ever show up at the hospital at all. So the fact that this woman was on multiple substances when she drove her kid to the hospital, and she was obviously intoxicated when she asked the officers to take the kid out of the car, that didn't stop the officers from just leaving her alone. And not taking her away for inebriation, because she made it to home base. She made it to the safe zone of the hospital. She was in the hospital parking lot. And anyone who's seeking help, the policemen don't arrest. They use their discretion. And I've been asked about discretion and when we use it. This is one of those ways that we use discretion, is that, we see obviously illegal things all the time, but our first priority is to treat sick people in a hospital setting and not deter them from getting treatment by trying to get them arrested. And that would include trying to involve all sorts of authorities in a case where this woman saw that her daughter was suicidal and decided prudently to get off of the highway, stop at the nearest hospital, and get her daughter into that hospital. Horrible decision to do drugs. Horrible decision to do drugs and get into a car. Horrible decision to take her daughter along with her. But at least she made that decision in the moment to get help at the hospital for her kid. And I could not see that point where somebody was going to make that call and where it would be most appropriate. This girl, while she was there, she was coached by some of the staff, myself included, that she really needed to disclose to the evaluators everything that she had previously said and whatever else was bothering her about her home life, so that she could get the appropriate help that she needs. But we all had the feeling that this girl might back down. No kid, no matter how abusive their parents are, no kid wants to see their parents go to jail. It's, or at least I haven't seen that one yet, where the kid who's beaten wants the parents to go to jail. Normally they clam up when they think that could be the ramification, And so the big thinker really is, at what point do we stop treating people blindly, and start just using some sort of sense of justice, We treat people against any sense of justice in the world, any sense of lawfulness. We just treat, period. Treat, treat, treat. And without that justice, are we really doing good for these patients? Are we really treating them as best we could? Could it be that the best treatment that this girl could receive would be her mother in prison? Until next time,